How's it going, guys? I apologize for my nasally voice right now. I kind of have a cold, and I'm from Michigan, so go figure. Anyway, today I have kind of a comparison and contrast video. I wouldn't necessarily call it a versus, we're not trying to determine which operating system is better, but I'd like to kind of illuminate the current state of iOS 12 and Android Pie, kind of bringing you a better idea as to which operating system has to offer. Fundamentally, they do exactly the same things in very similar ways. I mean, you can just see stylistic elements and some functionality and design in the user interfaces that have kind of, eaten off of each other's ideas. Apple has drawn some things from Google and vice versa. So we're going to kind of get into that and just kind of compare the overall user experience once again. So without further ado, let's get into this comparison video. Alright, so beginning with the lock screen, I mean, fundamentally they're very similar. They have sliding up elements, you have access to the camera, notifications, a clock to show you the time. The only major difference is you can toggle the voice search on Android by swiping up from the left. But once we get to the home screens, obviously things are going to look a lot different. Android is generally more customizable. Of course, that's kind of nuanced because each manufacturer has their own take. This is a more stock version of Android with 1+6. iOS is pretty locked. It's a grid. You don't really have too much say as to how you want to make it look. With Android, you get widgets and different icon packs, once again, depending on the manufacturer's version you're running. But other than that, they have similar status bars. The only major differences are, once again, the customizability, the app drawer that you can get with Android devices, and to wrap things up with the home screen, they both share a long press to get more options feature. Apple calls that 3D touch with their awesome haptic feedback. Android, there's no feedback, but it's very smooth, and you get similar options to what you would get on iOS. Yeah. Moving on to the notification dropdowns, both iOS and Android display your notifications in a kind of stacked style. The biggest difference is that Android has their system toggles integrated into the dropdown, whereas iOS, you have to toggle the designated control center. Another notable feature of the dropdown on iOS is that it's pretty much the lock screen. You have access to the camera the same way, the widgets to the left, and the notifications appear the exact same way, as well as the time. Oh, and a feature that I forgot to mention and actually record is split screen multitasking with Android. It is a very useful feature, I guess, if you're the right person for it, but for the most part, I personally just stick to the typical single screen app view. Moving on to the app switchers and the multitasking features, I would say they're more similar than ever, especially with that push for swipe-based gestures in both of the user experiences. The biggest difference, I would say, is in animation style. Apple is a little more easygoing, a little more fluid, whereas Android seems a little quicker, more to the point in terms of getting to your next app. They also both share a similar feature where you can swipe at the bottom towards the kind of home button designated area to switch to your adjacent apps. Messaging is kind of hard to talk about because, once again, Android differentiates itself manufacturer to manufacturer, which is why I chose to compare iMessage to the Google Messaging app. Both are great experiences. They're colorful. They work well. I mean, SMS messaging is not a bad experience by any means. It's just that iMessage is a little richer. You can send more images, and Apple has these homegrown features that are just unparalleled in the industry. I'm not saying it's better. It's just more suited towards some people, especially if you have friends who own iPhone. And if you still want to get Android, I mean, it's no big deal. You have great alternatives like WhatsApp and Hangouts, which offer very similar features which make use of data and Wi-Fi. Comparing the camera interfaces is also kind of hard because Android is so nuanced, which is why I downloaded a Pixel camera port. And I would say they're very similar. They're fundamentally similar in design and function. I would say the key differences lie with the advanced portrait mode found on iOS, where you can adjust the different lighting you want, and then on Android, at least with the Pixel, you have a night mode, which is really cool. And lastly, with Android, you can change camera settings within app, like resolution and frame rate, without having to go into the settings app. I find that kind of helpful, and once again, I wish that was a feature integrated into iOS. While we're doing this comparison, we might as well show default apps side by side. We got Apple Mail versus Gmail. I think it comes down to whether you're more of an iCloud-oriented person versus a Gmail or Google-oriented person. The experiences differ a little bit, but they're fundamentally the same. Next, we got Photos versus Google Photos. They look kind of different, but at the end of the day, they do pretty much the same things. You can edit photos within each app. They both have cloud-based features, but I would say that Google Photos might be a little more enticing to some people, especially if you're a Pixel user. Next, we got FaceTime versus Google Duo. FaceTime is a lot more feature-packed, especially with iPhone 10 and 10s devices, especially with those facial tracking effects and whatnot. Both offer high-quality video chatting, and if you are impartial, both will do the job for you quite well. Next, we got Safari versus Chrome. Again, you can get the Chrome app on iPhone. I mean, if you prefer, it kind of depends on if you're a more Apple or Google-oriented person. But at the end of the day, even though their interfaces are different, they pretty much do the same things. They allow you to search the web. You got tab view, private browsing, everything you would need. Next up, we got Maps versus Google Maps. And I'm sorry, once again, I said this is not a versus video, but I prefer Google Maps. I just don't trust Apple Maps because I grew up in a time where, we had the whole hysteria over iOS 6's Apple Maps, and I just don't really with that. I just instinctually find Google more reliable. I don't know, maybe that's kind of an irrational way to think, but if I'm driving more than a half an hour from my house, I am not taking any chances. Next up, we got Pages versus Docs. I would say Pages is a little more artsy. You have more control. It's the same app you can get on a Mac or an iPad. Google Docs is a little more bare bones. It's just for writing papers and getting work done. I like both. I use both. And once again, I think if you're impartial, just like with the browsers, both will get the job done for you if you're the typical consumer. Moving on to assistants, and I'm going to say this again really quickly, although this is not necessarily a versus video, it's kind of scientifically proven that assistant is better, and although it's not working right now in this comparison, apparently screen recording messes up Google Assistant. It's more conversational. It has more advanced, I guess you could call them AI features. Go watch MKBHD's video. He does a very good job covering that. But at the end of the day, Siri and Google Assistant do a great job at sending messages, checking the weather, and setting reminders. Pretty much things that we all do on a daily basis. We're not really doing anything too crazy with them to begin with. Last up, I want to compare these settings apps, and I know this is really boring, but there are some key nuances. They fundamentally do the same things, obviously, but I would say Android is a little more sub-menu based. With Apple, they kind of have more of the individual app settings on the first page. I would say it's up to your preference as to which you prefer. I don't think a settings app is going to decide which phone operating system you're going to stick with, but I thought I'd compare them nonetheless. So I hope this comparison brought a better idea to you, the consumer, as to where iOS and Android are at. I kind of think that we're biased if we just use one operating system. Like when I was using iOS for a while, I kind of scoffed at Android, and then I got kind of sick of iOS, and then switched to Android, and then scoffed at iOS, and then switched back. You kind of have to see both, what they're capable of, before you can make an educated purchase decision, say you want to switch to Android or vice versa. I thought this video would be helpful for people who are just kind of on one side, who kind of lack perspective. So once again, I hope this video helped you out. I would really appreciate it if you leave a like in the video, comment if you have any questions or suggestions, and subscribe for more content like this. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.